And a very happy Wednesday to you at 12:08 in the West. It's the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
John, yesterday there was a hearing with California's Department of Insurance and State Farm to discuss their request for a 30% rate hike. And guess who didn't show up?
Let me guess. Is it a gentleman who's kind of sketch?
I'm very kind of sketch.
Ricardo Lara called for this hearing after he tentatively already approved the rate hike and then didn't show up to the meeting, I'm assuming because he had to go see DJ Kitty Glitter.
I'll tell you, this guy is a piece of work. He doesn't show up to the oversight committee hearings in the legislature. He doesn't return anyone's phone call. He barely does any press at all. You have California ratepayers and homeowners who can't get any help from his office. Then State Farm says they want another rate increase in California, and they have to go to him to get approval to do it. He said, don't you worry about it. I'm going to do it, but I'm going to force them to come to a hearing and make the case. And unless they make the case, I won't do it, but it's already tentatively approved. They have the hearing, and he's a no-show.
Absolutely.
Maybe he just didn't want to go to Oakland.
What is he doing that's so important where he can't make time in his schedule to go to this hearing?
He's probably figuring out his summer travel schedule.
That would be my guess.
I mean, now's the time to get the deals on the points.
Maybe once he turns out, he's going to become a travel agent.
We all know as soon as he turns out, he's going to be on some board with these insurance companies because he has given them everything they've wanted and more, so they owe him big.
Okay, but at that point, you can't get anything else out of him. So you're relying on the good graces of the industry, particularly when they know that you're toxic.
Maybe they'll dump him. That'd be great.
It's a risky move if you're him.
Well, what's riskier? Hoping that the insurance industry will bail you out or trying to run for another office with this record under your belt?
Let's hear more on Ricardo Lara not showing up to his big hearing in Oakland with State Farm from KGO.
Always live. ABC 7 News starts right now.
A first-of-its-kind insurance meeting today in Oakland to determine whether property insurance rates will increase for about 1 million Californians. But one of the main men involved is a no-show.
Of course he is.
Doesn't take this job seriously at all.
No, and in a one-party state, he can get away with it.
He got elected twice.
Good evening, I'm Dion Lim.
And I'm Dan Ashley. Thanks for joining us. That key player, California Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara. California wants State Farm to justify a request to raise property insurance rates between 15 and 38%.
And it's not just that. That's the one that gets the big headline. They also want to raise renters insurance, and they also want to raise rental property insurance by almost 40%.
And you know they're going to get a yes to all of it.
7 on your side, investigative reporter Stephanie Sierra has been following this story and was at today's hearing.
She went to the hearing. Guess who didn't?
At some point, someone has to be able to figure out where, in fact, he was.
We walked in today with the expectation to see Commissioner Ricardo Lara present to hear arguments from both sides, specifically the data he requested from State Farm to prove these hikes are justified.
Nothing shows more that this is all kabuki theater than he doesn't show up to the hearing he called for.
And he also doesn't even give a damn about the optics. Because any politician, whether they be at the city level, the county level, the state level, whatever, you understand that if there's a big hearing that falls under your umbrella that you promised your constituents would happen and you don't show up, that's a bad look for you. He understands that. He doesn't care.
Here's what his staff had to say. Why isn't the commissioner present today?
The goal today is a court hearing that's focused on fairness, on transparency, and getting answers.
Oh, so we're just not even going to answer the question.
Of course not. They have a boss who's a party boy, and he'd rather be on some beach somewhere instead of being at this meeting. If you're an attorney who works for him, what do you say to the press?
And Commissioner Lara ordered this hearing in order to get to the facts about what...
Which he's not going to watch.
That's right.
I don't think he was pulling up the live stream because they didn't have a live stream.
And didn't he promise that there would be one?
Yes. In Ashley Zavala's report, the Department of Insurance promised that that hearing would be broadcast on the California Department of Insurance YouTube page, which I'm a subscriber of, and I didn't get no meeting.
So he didn't show up, and the meeting was not put on the internet.
No, all he wants is a headline out there that says he called for a meeting. He doesn't have to show up. He assumes nobody's paying attention to this.
About what's happening with State Farm.
Michael Soller is the Deputy Commissioner of Communications for the Department of Insurance.
This is the guy that has to go everywhere Ricardo Lara won't.
I'll tell you, I'm sure the job pays well. Whatever it is that he's being paid, it's not worth it, buddy.
He says by law, Commissioner Ricardo Lara is not considered a participant in Tuesday's hearing.
No, that doesn't make any sense. He called for the hearing. Oh, he can't be at the meeting that he called for, that he says he needs that information to approve the rate hike that he already approved? None of this passes the smell test.
What in the world is more important for California's insurance commissioner on that day than being at that meeting?
Well, apparently they're about to have another great conference out in the Bahamas.
Is that so?
Maybe they'll be going to Puerto Rico. Maybe they'll be going to the Dominican Republic. Maybe they should have an insurance cruise so he can hit all the countries at once.
Wherever it is, you know he'll bring a snorkel.
He said he's not a participant, but if he wanted to be here today to hear both sides, to get more information, he could have been present.
The commissioner's goal, again, is to get to the facts.
Wow, once again, we're not answering the question. This guy's a total hack.
You notice that this is the theme? Whether it was Kamala Harris when she ran for president, Javier Baccaria, whose sound we've been playing over the last several days, or this guy, they don't even get close to answering the question that they were asked, and they just get away with it.
The commissioner's goal, again, is to get to the facts without posturing, without politics.
But yes or no, could he have been here? Or...
By California law, these are separate processes.
According to...
That's nonsense.
No. What does that even mean?
He's trying to make... He has no idea what to say here. His boss is a no-show for the meeting he called. And he's trying
Why even talk to the press? If that is your answer, what do you think you're getting out of speaking with the press? Because every time you open your mouth, it's going to make you look bad. It's going to make him look bad. It's going to make the office look bad. It's not like he's going to be happy with you for going out and looking like a buffoon on TV.
And I'm so thankful for ABC7 in the Bay Area sending somebody out there, because a lot of news stations covered this hearing. This was the only station that covered specifically the fact that Ricardo Lara didn't show up.
So for the most part, he probably will get away with it.
According to legal analysis of the state insurance code, the commissioner has the option to observe the hearing, but not influence deliberations.
State Farm has paused writing of all policies. They have to come in, they have to open their books, they have to show the data.
Which Ricardo Lara won't see because he wasn't at the meeting.
Yeah, you see, you have to be in the room when they open up the books to understand what's in them.
Well, and none of this mattered to begin with, because he said, I'm going to approve this rate hike, but we should also have a meeting.
For the department,
we're hoping to see that data.
State Farm is now asking for an average 17% rate increase for homeowners, a 15% increase for renters, and up to a 38% increase for rental dwellings, arguing...
What do you think that's going to do to the price of rent?
It's going to go up, and the cost of living in California is also going to go up.
Arguing these increases are needed to rebuild capital following the LA County fires. The company testified their surplus went from $4 billion in 2015 to a projected $600 million in 2024.
How much did they give Jason Bateman for that Super Bowl commercial where they had him as Batman that they couldn't even air on the Super Bowl because of bad press?
They should have hired Gavin Newsom. They could have got him at a discount.
But Consumer Watchdog says it's not the job of policyholders to bail out for bad business decisions, adding State Farm is only entitled to rates they can prove.
We haven't seen the evidence that would justify the emergency request that they're making.
If approved, the interim rate hike would go into effect June 1st. I should note the judge presiding over this hearing works under CDI. He will make his final recommendation to Commissioner Lara, and Lara will have the final decision.
So it's ultimately up to him, but he doesn't go to the meeting.
No, because he has something more important to do. He just can't tell you what that is.
Reporting in Oakland, Stephanie Sierra, ABC 7 News.
Now, I know it's early in the year, but has any municipality started a Pride Festival yet?
Well, if they have, I think we know where he is. Now, while all of this is going on without Ricardo Lara being there, his office has made it very clear that they are sympathetic to the point of view of State Farm.
For more on what happened at that hearing that Ricardo Lara was a no-show for, here's KPIX.
We begin in Oakland, where a hearing is underway that could determine home insurance rates for millions of Californians. State Farm, the state's largest insurer, wants an emergency rate hike of 17%. But first, they have to convince a judge. State Farm is already...
Who then has to convince Ricardo Lara, who already said yes.
Yeah. The guy who makes the ultimate decision has already made up his mind. We are going through the motions.
State Farm has already put in other rate requests over the past year, but this emergency request is a direct response to the deadly L.A. County wildfires in January, which destroyed more than 18,000 buildings, most of them homes.
Most of them homes that State Farm dropped.
It's a vicious cycle.
State Farm estimates it will have to pay out roughly $7.6 billion to fire survivors, and it says that will deplete its reserves. But Consumer Watchdog argues that policyholders shouldn't be on the hook.
These rate increases would help State Farm stabilize and rebuild its surplus to continue to be there for its policyholders.
Policyholders are not insurance company investors. They don't pay premiums to boost a company's surplus.
Sure seems like this would be a relevant hearing for Ricardo Lara to be at.
If you're the guy making the decision, in many ways, this hearing was for an audience of one, and you didn't show.
It's not like the public had any way to watch this because they didn't broadcast it.
All the judge does in this case is make a suggestion. That's it. It's like going to your doctor. And your doctor looking at your weight, looking at your blood pressure, looking at your blood work, looking at all of the data that was presented to him and saying, you know what? I think it's a good idea for you to lay off the red meat. I know you like your steak. I know you like Ruth's Chris. I know you like Fleming's. I know you like going to Outback Steakhouse when you're in a pinch. All of the steakhouses. You need to give it a rest, because if you don't, you're going to need to buy one of those baboon hearts because yours is going to blow up. The doctor can't make the decision for you. The doctor doesn't order for you at the restaurant. The doctor doesn't put food in your cart at the grocery store. The doctor doesn't decide what Delta Airlines is going to serve you when you're going on vacation. You decide what it is that you put in your cart. You decide what you order at the restaurant. You decide what you put in your mouth on the airplane. That's your decision. They can make a recommendation based on the available evidence, but ultimately, you're the one that makes the call. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you would like each and every podcast edition of this program automatically downloaded to your phone so you can enjoy us whenever and wherever you are, that's easy to do.
Absolutely.
All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcast, whether it's the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe, and all the episodes go straight to your phone. Maybe you missed a couple episodes because you were at an insurance conference in Bermuda.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
Well, let's do that right now. 790 KABC welcomes Light Up the Blues, benefiting Autism Speaks, featuring Stephen Stills, Neil Young, Billy Idol, Chris Stills, Nathaniel Ratcliffe, Rufus Wainwright, and more. It's all coming to the Greek Theater on April 26th. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com, but right now, call it number 9 at 1-888-795-2222. Gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Needle Concerts. Good luck dialing.
And coming up later on this week, Randy, we're going to Long Beach.
It's coming up on Friday, everyone. We're going to be celebrating the 20th anniversary of Gladstone's Long Beach and the 50th anniversary of the Long Beach Grand Prix. Join us Friday, April 11th from noon to 3 for Fan Free Friday. We're going to be broadcasting from Gladstone's on the Rainbow Harbor in Long Beach. Now, Fan Free Friday is a ticketed event. There's been free tickets that have been given out in the Southern California News Group for weeks, but if you don't have your free Fan Free Friday tickets, you can still pick them up at O'Reilly Auto Parts, King Taco, and participating 7-Elevens. You're going to need that ticket to be able to park at the Pike. I'd call first to make sure you're not racing all over town, but we're going to be there from noon to 3. If you can make it, we'd love to see you. I know the traffic's going to be crazy that day, and if not, well, you're going to listen to the broadcast and hear us live in Long Beach.
It's going to be very busy in Long Beach on Friday. The Grand Prix is the biggest event that Long Beach hosts all year. It's like New Year's in Las Vegas. It's like the Rose Bowl for Pasadena. So do not, this is my recommendation, do not come to Gladstone's in Long Beach unless you have ticket in hand. Because if you don't have a ticket in hand, it is going to be very difficult to find parking. It's going to be very difficult to move around there. So get your ticket if you want to come from one of those locations.
Hey, is it Friday also the first day of Coachella?
It is.
Oh, my.
There's a lot going on Friday. It's Southern California. There's a lot going on all the time. Right now, we're going through all the latest that took place in Oakland yesterday, where State Farm Insurance is asking the insurance commissioner for a hefty rate increase for ratepayers.
And Ricardo Lara, the insurance commissioner, didn't bother to show up to the hearing he asked for.
I'm sure he'll make an informed decision.
John Ramus breaks down the arguments in this closely watched hearing.
This is KPIX reporting.
There wasn't a lot of drama at this hearing today, but it is part of a process that will likely dramatically increase the amount it costs to buy homeowners insurance in California.
That's because Ricardo Lara already said, I approve this.
This is all a done deal. The baby has already been put to bed.
With catastrophic wildfires becoming commonplace in California, the home insurance market is in crisis. The state's largest insurer, State Farm, says it's been slowly losing money for the last 10 years. And on this day, sat before an administrative law judge to argue that an interim rate hike is justified to keep the company solvent.
State Farm General surplus, which is the money that's available to pay claims, has fallen from about $4 billion in 2015 to about $1 billion in 2024. Following the fires in Los Angeles, State Farm General has estimated that its surplus will decline to about $600 million.
They say that's not nearly enough.
What does it say about an insurance company that they can't afford to fulfill the policies they write?
And this is also how so many organizations operate. If you've ever owned a home in an HOA, and I've done so in a couple of them, what they do is they say, the management company that looks at the books, oh, your reserves, they're nowhere near where they should be. If this goes wrong and that goes wrong and this goes wrong, then you won't have the number in the bank that you need. You need to raise the HOA rates each and every month, and you need to do it now. Otherwise, if something goes wrong, you're the one that's going to be blamed. And they put the pressure on the board to raise the rates for the HOA. And they always do it. And then what happens? Those companies that manage the money and manage the HOA for the elected board, they end up increasing their rates and they end up taking a bigger cut. That's what happens.
They say that's not nearly enough to pay claims if another disaster should strike. So they're asking Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara for an emergency rate hike for all State Farm policyholders statewide. And the commission seemed sympathetic to the idea.
I'm shocked.
You don't say. The commission which has already said what they're going to do, seems sympathetic.
This is how the state of California works. The insurance commissioner's office is sympathetic to the insurance industry. They're not regulating the insurance industry. The California Public Utilities Commission is made up of people who used to work at PG&E. Do you really think they're going to regulate PG&E?
No. These commissions do not exist to regulate these industries. They exist to make sure these industries are strong.
It is not in California consumers' best interest to allow State Farm General, the largest property insurance in California by far with 20% market share, to go bankrupt.
So what, they're too big to fail?
Okay, they just played this game how long ago, Randy?
In 2023, they got a 20% rate increase and then immediately filed for another 30% rate increase.
And keep in mind, when they ask for these increases, they're supposed to lay out, among other things, how this rate increase will make them solvent. How if they get this and this alone, then they will be on firm financial footing. And then they get it, and what do? They immediately ask for more money. It's like this industry is the Zelensky of companies.
Well, not only that, we had Jamie Court from Consumer Watchdog on this show a few months ago, and he said what goes on with these insurance companies like State Farm is it's not like they take your premium and put it in a bank. They go play it around with the stock market with it. So if they have bad investments, now they come back to you for more money.
And look at what's going on with the stock market now. So my guess is they have a bunch of losses in the stock market early on this year, and that's what they need to make up for.
Or to otherwise withdraw from the California market.
But hold on, says Harvey Rosenfield, founder of a group called Consumer Watchdog. He says Prop 103 requires that insurance companies prove that they need rate increases and that State Farm has been slow to do that.
The way it's been engineered by State Farm, it's a fast track. They want the commissioner to approve their rate increase now and then figure it out later whether it was justified or not. That's on
figuring out once Ricardo Lara is termed out.
That's right. It'll be the new guy that has to figure that out.
There is something very dangerous about a lame duck insurance commissioner. This term limits thing bites us in the ass over and over and over again.
I'm telling you, where he will really be dangerous is if he runs for another office and loses in the primary. And then he has exactly 8 months to sell his soul as insurance commissioner to that industry.
That's on how the law works in California.
There's reason to be skeptical. State Farm requested a 30% increase last June before the LA wildfires.
So that increase was even larger before the fires than after the fires.
Yes. So 2023, they asked for a 20% rate increase. They get it. Immediately in 2024, they asked for a 30% rate increase. And it was going through the processes. Now they say, oh, forget about that. We need an emergency one right now.
Now, after the fires, they've reduced that amount to 22%. And now that they're being required to show proof, they announced at the hearing that they've lowered the request to 17%.
This is all an act.
No, they're trying to figure out what the maximum number is that they can get, and they're going for that number. And they're probably negotiating back and forth with him. Politically, what is it that you can approve? If it's not 30%, well, how about 25%? No, I can't do that. How about 17%? There we go.
As a result, Consumer Watchdog attorneys moved to strike the evidence being presented.
We've been demanding this information for 9 months, and last night, on the eve of this hearing, State Farm sent us 6 documents. We haven't even had a chance to look at it.
But industry expert Carl Sussman thinks Consumer Watchdog is just stalling the process.
Can we just get the facts here? If they need their rate increases, show us the proof.
They won't show us the proof.
No, and the insurance commissioner won't show up to the meetings. So, in theory, if they have the proof, he's not aware of it.
What we have seen is these insurance companies are pretty much saying the same thing that Ricardo Lara has been saying. The proof is that the whole state's going to melt, so we need to jack up the rates.
Nobody cares if it was submitted an hour late or a day late. If the proof exists, let's see it. Let the insurance commissioner decide what he's going to do.
He may have.
You know, it's funny. You can always tell in a piece who's in the can for the insurance industry.
Well, The tell is strong.
He may have already.
If you, in any interview, whether it's on television or radio, start talking about how competent Ricardo Lara is, you're bought and paid for.
He may have already decided. Lara gave provisional approval of the rate hike and will let the judge decide. And
the judge gets to make him a recommendation, which doesn't mean anything. None of this means anything. Of course he didn't show up.
The judge doesn't decide. The judge, like the doctor who tells you to lay off the red meat, gets to issue a recommendation. Whether or not you take that advice and do anything with it is up to you, which in this case is Ricardo Lara.
And the commission's lawyers were clear on the state's position.
The normal rules don't apply. We're on the Titanic, and we see the iceberg.
This is the insurance commission.
The people who are elected to regulate the industry are acting as if they're the spokesman for State Farm.
Don't apply. We're on the Titanic, and we see the iceberg. Now is not the time to argue about where to put the deck chairs.
Boy, we're just going all in with this cliche.
There is still time, Your Honor, to turn this ship around. If we don't, over 3 million Californians...
So this was a hearing where both sides were arguing for the same thing?
Gee, I wonder how he's going to rule.
So the insurance industry says, yes, we need a rate hike. And the insurance commissioner's office says, yes, they need a rate hike.
are going in the water, and there are not enough lifeboats.
She went all in with every possible Titanic reference you can make.
It's probably not a stretch to compare California's insurance market to a sinking ship.
Well, that much is true.
Now a judge will decide if State Farm's claims of poverty actually hold water.
At the hearing, the Insurance Commission warned that State Farm's cash reserve has fallen so low that its policies are in danger of not being accepted by mortgage companies for people seeking home loans. State Farm general executives say the insurer's parent company would consider providing financial assistance if the rate hike request is approved.
So the local company will only get bailed out by their national company that isn't broke if they get the rate hike. What does that mean?
It means that the fix is in, that California ratepayers are going to be the ones that bail this company out, and they're going to be the ones that fork over all of the dough. And just my luck, State Farm is the company that I do business with.
Oh, they're dropping you.
It's just a matter of time.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
Oh, we know. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Yes, I am. We read all of your emails. They come in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Jeff in Redondo Beach writes in, as John needs to be added to the alliteration of Hall of Fame for saying firm financial footing.
Yeah, I could do small market TV.
I think at some point it just kind of rubs off on you.
Naked and unafraid and just a feet away from the Beverly Hills border. As the tents go up, the clothes come off, and now outraged locals are fighting back against the nudity, narcotics, and negative impact on their businesses.
Nudity, narcotics, and negative impact. It doesn't get better than that.
Mark Brown is a legend. The Fix California Hour coming up after the news at 1. The big story nationally is concerning President Donald Trump and tariffs. Tariffs with not only China, but with the rest of the world. Well, the latest on that is this. The tariff tit for tat between the United States and China escalated again today, with President Donald Trump saying that he is immediately raising the tariffs on Chinese goods to 125% over Beijing's lack of respect towards America, while pausing and lowering reciprocal tariffs on other countries. Here is what Trump wrote on Truth Social earlier today. Quote, at some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize that the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable, end quote. Trump wrote that more than 75 other countries have called U.S. representatives to negotiate a solution to the subjects relative to trade barriers, tariffs, currency manipulation, and non-monetary tariffs. He added that these countries, at my strong suggestion, have not retaliated in any way against America. Trump wrote that his reciprocal tariffs on other countries would be paused for 90 days, during which the tariff rate would be 10%. Now, what's interesting about this is that what we ended up with, or at least what we have today, is we have the United States and all of these other countries on one side, and we've got China on the other. And the result is a lot of uncertainty globally when it comes to where trade is going, where the stock markets are going, where the economy is going. But China is becoming increasingly isolated, which is going to put pressure on the people in charge of that government, which right now is the communist government, the people's government, the CCP. And what's so interesting about this to me is the usual suspects are going against Trump, and the usual suspects are defending Trump. He has most of the Republicans with him, and most of the Democrats are being extremely critical. There are some exceptions where you have the libertarian types who don't like tariffs, who are very critical of what he's doing. I think the Wall Street Journal has been critical. Even some of his supporters, Bill Ackman, the billionaire, and others are saying, whoa, maybe don't do this. What's interesting to me is that over the summer of last year, I read Nancy Pelosi's book about power. Remember that one? That was the book that she was promoting after she took Grampy Joe and pushed him off the top deck of Angel Stadium like what happened to O.J. Simpson in the Naked Gun movie.
We love everybody.
And in that book, to my memory, and I could be wrong, so fact check me if you want, the longest chapter in the book was her chapter about China. Nancy Pelosi regards herself as being the foremost expert on China in the United States Congress, which she says she feels comfortable declaring because women very frequently do not give themselves enough credit for their intellect. But she is willing to do so, and no one in that Congress knows more about China than her. And she is extremely critical of the Chinese government, or at least was in her book. Now, she doesn't like what they're doing with trade. She doesn't like what they're doing with currency manipulation. She doesn't like what they're doing stealing intellectual property. But what really upsets her are the human rights abuses over there. And she wants that government to fall, and she wants that government to be isolated globally. How did she recommend isolating them globally? Through trade, of course. She was always critical whenever they would be given most favored nation status. She was critical when they were put in the World Trade Organization. She fought it every step of the way, including members of her own party. It was Bill Clinton who tried to bring China into the world fold when it comes to trade and tried to normalize relations with China and doing business with China, those sorts of things. And she gave him all kinds of hell for doing that. And it still bothers her to this day that he went ahead and did that. What's crazy to me, and I'm sure it's because she hates his guts, what's crazy to me is the person who is going to give Nancy Pelosi what she has been advocating for decades on the issue that she claims she cares about the most is Donald Trump. And what's nuts to me is that if there ever was an opportunity for bipartisanship between him and Nancy Pelosi, this would be it because it's her signature issue. And she's willing to spend capital on it. Don't forget, she played chicken with them when Joe Biden was in office, and she went to Taiwan against the wishes of the Chinese government and against the wishes of Joe Biden. In a strange world, Donald Trump is doing exactly what Nancy Pelosi has been advocating for years. What a world.